we know what it is by definition, by what the experts are telling us, and by what we have seen on our TV screens, on our phones. We've seen legal scholars say that this is a genocidal campaign to destroy Palestinian lives. So I am not gonna spend any more time in this building that is actively harming folks. I just knew that I could no longer be complicit. My name is Ana del Castillo, and I served as the Deputy Director for the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility team at the White House from September 2023 to April 12, 2024. I resigned from my position over moral and ethical concerns about the Biden administration's policy as it pertains to Gaza. So growing up as a Latina woman in the United States, I myself have faced much discrimination and have witnessed what it's like for people in my community to be stripped of basic human rights and human dignity. And both of my parents instilled in me at a really young age that it's important to take care of the people in our community and to really have empathy and love for people around the world. And so that instilled in me this desire to be a public servant. In grad school, I was lucky enough to take a 2-year-long course called Narratives of Belonging and Displacement, which focused on Palestine. And the experience for me walking along border crossings and seeing children living in refugee camps, the sheer magnitude of what Israel's occupation is doing to generations of people is something that has stayed with me since that time, since being in Palestine. So I started my job at the White House in September, 1 month before October 7th, and I remember that day so clearly, but I felt this gut feeling of holding my breath, of just kind of bracing myself for what I knew would unfold after October 7th. And I felt a lot of fear for what was to happen. And I knew that specifically in my position as the Deputy Director for the DEIA office, this was a time when having conversations about repair and inclusion were gonna be deeply, deeply necessary. So we collectively sat in a room and heard staff members pouring out pieces of themselves, of their family histories, of their personal connections to both Israel and Palestine. And it was so heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking to hear how Israel's attack following October 7th was causing so much harm to people's families. And I think all of us knew that it would just continue to get worse.
But the United States stands with Israel. We will not ever fail to have their back.
There was definitely a sense of anger. I remember one line in particular of a friend of mine saying, who's Muslim, who said, "I will never door knock for him again. I will never door knock for President Biden again." I think President Biden has in his whole career loudly been a Zionist and believes that a safe Israel means safety for all Jewish people. I don't think it takes a policy expert to see that there has been a clear party that he is mostly caring about, and that is Israelis. And that has resulted in 40,000 deaths of innocent Palestinians that we know of. It's probably a lot larger of a number.
An Israeli strike on a school in Jabalia.
Israeli strikes on Gaza killed at least 29 more people.
Nearly 17,000 children who have lost their lives.
Medical sources say the Israeli army prevented paramedics and civil defense teams from reaching the bomb sites.
I don't want to take away blame from President Biden, but his advisors have failed him. There is an entire team around him that is allowing these policies to take place. And so I think the blame is on every single person that has sat in these rooms, officials from the State Department, officials from the National Security Team, the whole coalition that sits around a table, that sits in the Situation Room and makes these decisions. I had many junior level staff come to me and say, I have a strong opinion about this and I can't bring this up to my manager. A lot of people thought that they were going to lose their jobs. And so I was not doing well personally because I had friends in the region. I was making sure that my friends in Gaza were okay. I was connecting with people who I'd gone to Palestine with to say, what can we do? And so I felt this deep, almost like disembodiment as I walked into the EEOB every single day, passing protesters who were wrapping plastic baby dolls covered in blood outside of my office, or who were spraying fake blood at my feet. And I didn't feel angry at them, but I felt this gratitude for saying, thank you for reminding us what is happening in a place that feels really far away, but that our building is like directly tethered to. It was really difficult for me to do my job because I felt complicit in harm. And so, yeah, it was not an easy time. It continues to be a really difficult time, I think, for all of us as Americans who know that so much of the violence that is occurring in Palestine is happening with our funding, it's happening with our bombs. And there's a complicity in that that should make us feel deeply uncomfortable. To be honest, there were so many weeks where I thought it was going to be my last day. In January of 2024, after months of witnessing Israel's attacks on Gaza and how the administration continued to provide weapons and funds, I knew that I had to do something. I knew that I had to level up the internal work that I was doing. And so I wrote a personal letter of concern to the chief of staff of the White House and also to the director of my team and the leadership of my team. And I just said, I'm deeply concerned. I have been out on the streets protesting with other White House staffers. You've hired me as a subject matter expert to help you build a culture where everyone feels seen and valued here, but also to always speak for justice. We are not doing that. I am not the only person in the administration who feels deeply morally concerned about what's happening.
Another Biden administration official who resigned over the administration's support for the war on Gaza.
Josh Paul resigned from the State Department soon after October 7th in protest of what he said were unscrutinized U.S. arms transfers to Israel.
What was the final straw in saying, I can't stay here anymore?
And when I didn't receive a response, and when I noticed that my memos that were focused on trying to increase staff access to senior leadership were also not receiving response, and at the same time, we were witnessing the death toll just increase, from 30,000 to 35,000.
Health officials in Gaza say the official death toll from Israel's 10-month war has now topped 40,000, but that figure is widely believed to be an undercount.
And so it was a decision for me to say, I no longer feel like I belong here. I no longer want to be complicit in this violence. I don't think that folks who have stayed in federal government are complicit, full stop, but I think that those people who in their guts know that something wrong is happening, and yet they choose not to use their power and their privilege and their positions to speak against the harm that's happening in Gaza, I do think that they are complicit. And I invite them to use their voices and to not be afraid to say, this is wrong, and I hope that we can be players in the repair of the destruction and the rubble in Gaza, which will take decades to solve. And we have to be a part of that solution because we have been a part of the disastrous harm that's been caused there.